Carolina.
We're, right where we need to be at this point of the season. 2 games to go in the regular season, and we got time away to get back to work this week, try and improve, and make sure that we play the best we're capable of playing next Sunday to try and get a win. And that's really all our focus needs to be about. If we're worried about anything else, you're not as locked in as you need to be.
And if the Falcons lose Sunday in the Superdome, the Saints will be NFC South champs. The Cowboys are still alive with a must-win coming up Sunday against the Seahawks, with Jason Garrett ready to welcome back today Ezekiel Elliott, who will practice with the team after the 6-game suspension.
Typically when you're away from the team, you have to find ways to stay in shape and get yourself ready to come back and play football. So obviously it was very productive for us first half of the season, productive as a runner, and did a lot of really good things for our football team. So.
The college football bowl season continues tonight with the Boca Raton Bowl between Florida Atlantic and Akron. And as a reward, Florida Atlantic today gave Lane Kiffin a new 10-year extension. NBA tonight, LeBron and the Cavs are in Milwaukee looking to extend their winning streak to 6 in a row. I'm Jeff Biggs. This is NBC Sports Radio.
In that Boca Raton Bowl, you got to look at this. Akron and Florida Atlantic, not a thriller. I mean, those are not, the thought occurs on this. By the way, I'm Marky Billson, voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-City sports fans here on Tri-City Sports Now. All right, what's the biggest game? And I think it will still be bigger than the ETSU Tennessee game that'll be played next year, September. What's the biggest football game in ETSU history? 34-14, 1969, Grantland Rice Bowl, capping off the undefeated season, 12 sacks, coverage sacks of Terry Bradshaw, his final collegiate game. I once met Bradshaw. He could not remember the nickname of the ETSU team. Thought it was Eagles. It was straight. Now, some of that he's often said, I can't remember stats. I mean, I've been concussed 6 times. Trust me. I play up the dumb country boy and all this sort of, but, no, this is serious, and yeah. But yeah, and something else I would point out, I mean, we are college football central, don't get me wrong, but yeah, you win 4 Super Bowls. The Grantland Rice Bowl of 1969, you don't really dwell on what could have been. One reason why is that the 1968 Grantland Rice Bowl was a Louisiana Tech victory, quarterbacked by Terry Bradshaw, against the Akron Zips. And I just, that's the thing with the Randy Sanders hire. One of the frustrating things that I've always had with ETSU, being a big backer and all that, being part of the BFFF, always really demanding, I think, that people around here treat it like not a glorified high school, but a real D1 opponent. They're playing Tennessee next year. They played them in basketball, hosted them last year. Not going to play Science Hill, folks. Not going to play Unicoi County. Not going to play Dobbins Bennett or John Battle. A lot closer to the highest level of college athletics than the lowest in high school. Despite the fact that the football team has been a traditional loser. I mean, despite that fact. It's, Southern Conference is good competition. And I mention this, though, because look at that. Here you have Louisiana Tech, which is now, lest they learned, they're not in the WAC anymore. They're not that, they're not, but they're, a legitimate FBS college football program. The ETSU Buccaneers, they had a rematch of the Grantland Rice Bowl. I remember in 1992. The color commentator at the time told me after the game it was men against boys. The Bulldogs hung up something like 50 against ETSU. It was not a pretty picture. It was back in 1992, if you want to look up the game. That's how far Louisiana Tech, even back then, had advanced from ETSU. Now you look at Akron, and they're in the MAC. And these teams in 1968, 1969, they were all equal. They were all playing on the Grantland Rice Bowl, which was for small college teams. There was not a Division I AA or an FCS official classification. I believe there was a small college football poll. But when you examine that and you hear Terry Bowden, he's taking Akron. Jason Taylor played at Akron. Akron, going to a bowl game. Akron, playing for the MAC title. The MAC, which is not tremendously sensational football, but it does actually, it's not the Big Ten, but it is, again, FBS. Not going to win the national championship out of the MAC, but you could, Jason Taylor. You could beat a big, I remember a few years ago, Akron beat Pitt. Okay, so, anyway. Point is, when I hear about this and, everybody say, Lane Kiffin, let's see what that seems to be the appeal. How about the appeal of looking at where Akron is, where Florida Atlantic is, where Louisiana Tech is, and then scratching your chin and then saying, maybe the hiring of Randy Sanders has finally allowed ETSU to start thinking about not being left behind by, for crying out loud, schools like Akron, which, is not that tremendous, They dropped baseball at Akron not that long ago, They don't play in a rubber bowl still, but, this is Akron here. Akron! You really shouldn't be allowing Akron to move past you. By the way, Cam Phillips, for all you Virginia Tech fans, still has the hernia. He's going to miss the Camping World Bowl against Oklahoma State. That's actually one of the better matchups. There's still all consolations, but that's actually one of the better matchups, I think, Oklahoma State, Virginia Tech in the pre-New Year's Bowl season. So, but the Hokies won't have their top receiver. He still has his hernia. Give you that right there. But yeah, I just, I was thinking about that when I heard, Akron and all this. If you know ETSU history, why couldn't ETSU make those rises? Why couldn't they, do those things? Instead, I'm fighting with people on the internet. How dare you say a 2-point loss in which a 22-point lead was, was lost would be a bad game for ETSU. Look who they were playing. I remember when ETSU would go to Xavier and win the game. Okay? Well, they're ranked number 10 in the country. That era that I just spoke of, that Grantland Rice Bowl era, Skeeter Swift, Madison Brooks, they go to Cameron Indoor, beat number 9 Duke by 8 points. Talked about it yesterday. We're actually 49 years and 6 days away from that game. Long time ago, but why couldn't you have moved to more than, you beat number 9 50 years ago. Why haven't you been able to capitalize on that and yourself play in a Boca Raton Bowl with these schools? I wish we would start thinking along those lines around here. Because, like I said, MLS team coming to Nashville. Why couldn't the Tri-Cities get that United Soccer League team to be affiliated with Nashville? Wouldn't that be, that would be, I realize it's still minor league sports, but it's high minor league sports. It's AAA. It's not the Appalachian League, We can do that here. Maybe the opportunity will present itself. Anyway, those are things. For those of you watching on Facebook Live here, you're seeing I've got this red shirt on. Yes, I'm going to talk about my shirt. Yeah, it's you heard me, my shirt. I'm going to talk about it. It's got this logo right here, sort of a couple of, it looks almost like a couple of parentheses trying to make love. If you're listening on the radio, you're going, I have got to like that 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities Facebook page and see that what kind of 2 parentheses making love, what in the world is that? You can't miss singing. I'm putting it out right now. So if you're watching along, you know what I'm saying. If you are not watching along, you will, I'm sure, now like us on Facebook at 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities and seek out this video. I am now turning my torso to the screen where you can see the end of this. This does relate to sports. All right. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time showing you my shirt because this is radio after all, even with the Facebook Live TV and the in-studio camera. But you probably then saw something called coachesaid.com. And this is next point with it. I guess we could do we could have done a media watch with this, but I guess we're going to just do it loosely here. Anybody know what Coach's Aid is? You do maybe if you're from Oklahoma. There you go. Coach's Aid, I actually was an editor for Coach's Aid. This was several years ago. And it was supposed to be a national high school sports website. And it never really had the ability to take off in terms of hits. The promotions weren't there. They didn't know how to do that. The other thing that killed Coach's Aid is something that I do think kills a lot of modern media. I spoke last week on Media Watch about homerism in sports, and just a great piece in Sports Illustrated, which I thought I had somewhere near me. Here it is. The great piece in Sports Illustrated here. A lot of talk about the violence of football, and I mean, yeah, you heard at the top of the hour. Now Antonio Brown is out. I mean, about a quarter of the All-Pro team has missed this season in the NFL. Last year's All-Pro team, 4 or more games. Anyway, we talked a little bit about how, the year in sports media. Sports Illustrated, they look at, the emergence of Tony Romo. They look at Doris Burke. I will say this about Doris Burke. I know that, a while back she was treated poorly by Gregg Popovich, head coach of the Spurs, all this. The only thing that I want to say, I mean, obviously, it's, not good. I mean, not cool, Gregg Popovich, I mean, you're not my favorite person to begin with. But one of the things that I do see in articles like this where we go into sexism in sportscasting, I just wanted to point out that almost all of I was treated badly by Gregg Popovich, by, I can recall I'm trying to think of another circumstance of trying to, I know Dave Kingman back in the day, sent a dead rat to a female reporter. That comes to mind. I've never had a dead rat sent to me. I did once have a dead bird left on my doorstep when I was 9 years old. Okay, somebody thought that was going to be a real treat, But I will point out that, the only thing that I did want to mention is that I read these stories and I start thinking, I'm an old pro in the media. And it just seems to me that all these things that, being treated very badly, terse, like you don't know what you're talking about. Doris Burke, what the problem she has had with Gregg Popovich. I had the same thing with Dale Burns. Very first game that I ever called professionally. Dale Burns, the former, Tennessee High coach. He has that basketball tournament that's about to take place where they have teams from overseas come in and drub the local teams, and I think it's a big deal. Anyway, he's not doing that anymore. I don't know what, I couldn't care less what Dale Burns is doing these days, But yeah, I mean, I had that. And that's one of the things where I look at when I keep hearing these stories about, sexism or something in sport. Obviously, bad when it happens. You know what? It was bad when it happened to me when I go up to a Dale Burns as a 21-year-old kid, just trying to make it in the world. Excuse me, Mr. Coach. Excuse me. Yes, I'd like to talk to you before the game. Thank you. could you tell me, please, what your keys are here at Tennessee High to beat Sullivan Central today? Score more points! I can't claim sexism. I can claim disrespect. That, by the way, was the answer that I was given as a very young, and what it causes me is not to recoil and say, Doris Burke, you experienced sexism. I don't really look at it that way. I do admire professionalism, which I hope that I exude as well, and ability to go forth, which obviously I did by hosting this show after being... What I really think of is Gregg Popovich, and for that matter, more locally, Dale Burns, just, twerps. Put it mildly. Hey, I'm Marky Billson, Tri-City Sports Now. I do want to, by the way, also, Burke may be a little bit more professional than I am. Supposedly she is made up with Gregg Popovich and all that. I have no desire to make up with Dale Burns. I always thought he was I don't like him. I mean, it's that point. I think that he's very overrated, and it's pretty much known as an AD at King. He couldn't do the budget right. So what can you say? That was the Peter principle. Promoted to a position he could not handle. There you go. AD at King. He was a high school basketball coach. I did want to point this out. As I said, though, I got off the beaten track because I was going to go with Coach's Aid. And, yes, the parentheses, making love. Coach's Aid, like I said, was supposed to be this national high school website. And we talk a lot about, Homer media. And I do think there's a lot of Homer media in high school sports. There's a lot of, here today, gone tomorrow, a kid has kicked off a team. I once remember a high school coach around here trying to tell me after a player had been kicked off the team and actually expelled from school for bringing a gun to campus. And he tried to cover it up by saying he broke a team rule. You think? To me, that's dishonesty. To be honest with you and all this. But I remember Coach's Aid was someone that's, now don't be, picking on those coaches right there. That's not what we want. No. Just stick with the balls and strikes and, yards and the first downs and the baskets and the goals and all that. Okay. The endeavor to take it national with that kind of reporting lasted 2 months. We were all laid off after that. And the easy reason why is you were already getting that sort of coverage in, already on the burgeoning social media market. You were already getting that coverage, if not harder hitting, than the local newspaper. I remember one time in the 2 months that I was writing on there was a story that a local high school team, it was actually out of this area, I was running outside of the area, and there was a hazing event. Team had gotten into trouble for hazing a player, and it really was despicable. I was told I could not cover that at coachesaid.com. What kind of credibility am I going to have? So when I see the idea of, and it's talked about in this week's Sports Illustrated, just to reiterate this, and they talk about how the media is going a little bit, sometimes a lot more Homer-centric. Now, you can call Bill Simmons a Homer because he doesn't make any bones about the fact that he's a Boston fan. On the other hand, is Bill Simmons a Boston fan? Does he not necessarily, is he not critical of the Red Sox when they lose? Does he not have players that he praises more than others? That's one kind of reporting, I guess, that maybe, just maybe, I don't like it when you make excuses, and I think a lot of people around here do make excuses, but I don't like it when you make excuses. But it's one thing to have that passion. I think Bill Simmons brought that. It's a total other thing to say, ignore the story. And that's where, and a good example of this was, remember last year when people would actually be talking about Butch Jones and they try to defend him by saying, well, he's never had the Vols in any trouble. Excuse me, Dre Bowles? But that had all been swept under the rug. Tennessee fans had forgotten about it. That's blatant homerism. It's the sort of homerism that killed, right here, Coach's aide. And that's what we won't be giving to you here on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities or Tri-Cities Sports Now. Well, because, you know, you can sit next to the person next to you, the fanboy next to you, and hear how great the local team is. You know, you can talk to the mother of the high school point guard and find that out. I'm the guy who's going to tell you if he has a chance to go to college or not. And that's kind of where the interest lies, don't you think? Tri-City Sports Now.
Thanksgiving, holiday parties, celebrations. Let Happy Hour Tri-City Liquor be your one-stop destination. Get your holiday spirits less expensive at Happy Hour Tri-City Liquor than anywhere in the Tri-Cities. Expect friendly and helpful service